Well, let's just get this over with, shall we? How can I be of service? Out with it, I haven't got all night.
Thou speakest aright, I am that merry wanderer of the night. I jest to Oberon and make him smile when I a fat and bean-fed horse beguile, neighing in likeness of a filly foal. And sometimes lurk I in a gossip's bowl in very likeness of a roasted crab. And when she drinks, against her lips I bob, and on her withered dewlap pour the ale. The wisest aunt telling the saddest tale, sometime for 3-foot stool mistaketh me. Then slip I from her bum, down topples she, and Taylor cries, and falls into a cough. And then the whole choir hold their hips and laugh, and waxen in their mirth and knees, and swear a merrier hour was never wasted there. Hello, and welcome back to Silver Griffin Makes a Thing, where we make whatever we feel like, at the moment. Today we're working on a doll custom that's rather near and dear to my heart, the Fairy Trickster Puck, based on their presentation in one of my all-time favorite series, Gargoyles. I've been a fan of the character of Puck for a long time now. They're a character rooted in English folklore and make appearances in a variety of media. Most famously, Puck appears as the boon companion of the fairy king Oberon in Shakespeare's play A Midsummer Night's Dream. There, Puck is a harmless trickster meddling on Oberon's behalf because he and his Queen Titania are having a bit of a spat. In other media, Puck, or Robin Goodfellow as they're often known, can be more bizarre or even sinister. Authors ranging from Neil Gaiman and Mercedes Lackey to Jim Butcher and Rob Thurman have all produced fascinating takes on the character. But today we're focusing on Puck as portrayed by Greg Weisman in Gargoyles. Gargoyles, for those of you who have sadly missed out, was an animated show that ran on the Disney Channel from 1994 to 1997 and focused on a clan of medieval Scottish gargoyles who've awoken in modern-day Manhattan. It features fantastic characters and storylines drawn heavily from mythology and Shakespeare, and it still holds up beautifully. A writer friend of mine who used Robin Goodfellow as one of their main characters hooked me on the series by telling me that Puck was featured in the show, and it remains perhaps my favorite depiction of that shrewd and knavish sprite to this day. And as a little extra bonus, this video is part of the Doll Fairy's Obscure Disney Characters collaboration. Patrons were invited to join in and create dolls based on some of Disney's lesser-known characters and properties. There are some super cool dolls being showcased in this collaboration, so definitely go check them out. Let's get started, shall we? For a base, I'll be using this Spectra doll I picked up secondhand. I really like her face mold for this project. She's got these more delicate features and dramatic cheekbones that will translate very well to a fairy character. Also, she's already got white skin, which will be easier to darken to the very fair skin tone I'll be working with. The fact that her arms and legs are transparent is no hindrance at all. We can fix that. I did feel a little bit bad about cutting off Spectra's hair because it's super pretty, but the Puck does not have purple hair, so off it comes. Into some boiling water she goes. The heat softens the vinyl of the head and makes it easier to remove. In theory, sometimes you need to stick the head back into the water for a second round of heating. Maybe make a cup of tea with the water left in the kettle. Then on to my least favorite part, removing the hair plugs with a pair of pliers. At least once this part is done, I get to move on to something less sticky and more fun. As always, I'm doing my best to be careful and not accidentally rip through the vinyl. The holes for the hair plugs essentially make perforated lines along the scalp that makes it really easy to tear through if you're not careful. The last bit of prep at this point is to wipe off the factory paint with some acetone. I've heard that you can use a nail polish remover that isn't pure acetone to get the paint off, but honestly, pure acetone is easy enough to come by and it works best. Just make sure you're working in a well-ventilated space so you're not just inhaling the fumes. And if you work without gloves like I prefer to, wash your hands really well and consider using some moisturizer or nail oil afterwards. Head's all clean, so let's get to the fun bit. In the show, Puck and a lot of the other fairies have these very dramatic pointed ears. They're not quite to the level of the elves in World of Warcraft, but they aren't that far off. I used some Apoxie Sculpt to shape the ears. They're just big enough that I considered using a wire armature to support them, but they actually managed to stick to the vinyl just fine. I sculpted one ear and let it cure before tackling the second so I wouldn't squish my work by mistake. Since I had the Apoxie Sculpt out anyway, I also added a bit more to her cheekbones, and I sealed up some of the hair plug holes on the sides of her head. Puck has a pretty dramatic hairline, so I don't want the holes messing that up. Time to prime! I gave the body a quick sanding off camera, and now I'm applying a couple of thin coats of white gesso. This is a primer that you use in painting to prepare canvases, and it gives a great surface to work on. Mostly I'm using it here to cover the transparent plastic of the doll's arms and legs so I don't have any weird see-through patches once I get the paint on. The head also gets a couple of layers. With my nice pristine work surface readied, I mix up a very fair skin tone and set to work painting everything. I know it's hard to tell, especially with the lighting, but I promise, she's actually a sort of pale peachy color and not just white. For this project, I treated myself and got some Yungo Pastels. I see a ton of other doll artists using these, and I can see why. They're a lot nicer than what I've been using before. They're so pretty too. Look at all these colors. So many options to work with. I get to work blushing the body. I'm still keeping to a pretty pale palette, but a little bit of warm pink and brown in strategic places brings a lot of life to the doll. I also start adding some blushing to the face, ears, and hands. Each coat gets sealed in with some diluted Liquitex matte varnish that I carefully dab on with a makeup sponge. At the time of filming, I did not have an outdoor space in which to safely use Mr. Super Clear. Since then, though, we've moved to a place with a small yard. I'm looking forward to getting myself some MSC and a respirator mask as soon as I can, which I hope will make the sealing steps a lot easier. Puck is traditionally depicted as male, so I'm sure some of you are wondering why I'm using a female doll for this custom. There's a few reasons. Plenty of tricksters in mythology have appeared as both male and female at various times, taking whichever guise suits them at the moment. And hey, if you're an immortal shapeshifter, why not play around with gender and gender presentation? It's all a social construct anyway. Even in the show, Puck's design and proportions are constantly changing. Sure, that's just all the different animation teams being a little bit off model, but it really works for a shapeshifting character. Additionally, my two earliest experiences with Puck did present them as female. The writer friend who introduced me to Robin Goodfellow wrote a female version, and the very first time I saw the play on stage, they had cast a really delightful and impish girl as Puck. The idea of a female or female presenting Puck just sort of sticks with me and makes me happy. And lastly, the very slender body sculpts of the Monster High dolls just work really well for the design. I am really looking forward to being able to use MSC. The matte medium works alright for the pastels, but I still have a lot of trouble getting watercolor pencils to stick. It just doesn't have the great tooth that MSC does, and dabbing on the liquid varnish sometimes just makes the pastels and pencils run a bit. The first layer winds up looking alright and gives me something to work with in subsequent passes. On to layer 2. I'm still using watercolor pencils here. Puck is getting a pretty subtle pale pink lip color, but the eyeshadow took on a bit of a life of its own. I'd initially thought about doing a green eyeshadow to go with the green eyes, but that winds up being literally the only green in the entire design, and Puck's costume is already rather motley. Amazingly, the purple eyeshadow turned out to work better. I used this layer to start turning up the saturation on the eye area, as well as defining the lash lines. I didn't start watching Gargoyles until my late teens, right around a period where I was doing a lot of drawing. Like a lot of drawing. I fell in love with the art style of the show and deliberately incorporated a lot of its design elements, especially the eyelashes. I really liked the eyelashes that all the humanoid characters had. So Puck is going to get some very Gargoyles-esque eyelashes in this custom. For her expression, I wanted something sort of sly and mischievous. This is, after all, that shrewd and knavish sprite, that merry wanderer of the night. I gave her an impish sidelong glance and a little bit of a smirk. You may have noticed that I haven't given her any pupils. This is another nod to the show. All the fairy characters get depicted without pupils as an indication of their inhuman and otherworldly nature. Puck is getting vivid green eyes rather than the blue they're depicted with in the show, because green eyes is just a little bit more traditional for fairies. And if I ever needed an excuse to break out the interference pigments, this is absolutely it. A little green gets layered onto her eyes for that magical look, and a bit of blue and purple added to her eyeshadow gives some more shimmer. Final details such as the sclera and lashes get added with acrylic paint using teeny tiny brushes. Once that's done, I seal the face off screen with more diluted matte medium, then gloss the lips and eyes with Liquitex gloss varnish for a lifelike shine. I love how she came out. She's almost ready to start causing mischief. Next comes the hair. I got some white acrylic yarn, brushed it out, and then glued it to make wefts that I straightened with a hair straightener. Puck's hair is always sort of floating about in the show, and I found that these yarn wefts have enough body to recreate that sort of defying gravity look. I use Elmer's glue wall to start attaching the wefts to her head. I do my best to keep to Puck's distinctive hairstyle. There are these two long locks that hang down in front of the ears, then the hair on the sides and top is swept back to show a very dramatic hairline. It winds up turning out not quite as sharp as I was like, but it's pretty nice. I work from the outside in to keep to the hairline, then start adding in wefts to fill in the body of the hair once the glue dries. This winds up taking several sessions. Using glued wefts always initially results in some pretty wild hairstyles. I think she kind of looks like Delightful's Banshee right now. It's time to tame the mane. I use a hair straightener and a butter knife to get the hair laying how it needs to go, heating the knife and using it to style the hair. Be really careful doing this because that metal knife is going to get super hot. Also be really careful where you set the hair straightener. I'm a huge klutz, so I'm always worried I'm just going to move and get my foot caught in the cord and dump the hot hair straightener into my lap or something. That would hurt. I have not done that yet, and I really don't want to. It takes several passes to get through all the layers of hair, but with some persistence and the help of a tiny baby comb and some scissors, I managed to get the hair slicked back into an elegant mane. Costume time! I made the costume off-screen, mostly adapting patterns from Moonlight Jewel and Delightful. The leggings and shirt are made of a stretchy knit material that's quite soft and has a bit of drape to it. The arm cuffs and belt are made from some wired gold ribbon, and the boots are made from a faux leather placemat I had left over from making a budget Loki cosplay back in college. The crenellated details were added with yellow acrylic paint, and the shoulder clasp of the tunic is a bit of gold-colored craft wire. Time to dress her. I may remake the tunic at a later date because it's a bit too long and doesn't fit quite as well as I would like, but I don't hate it, so it stays for now.
Here's Puck.
And here she is, looking fabulous and ready to create mischief. I am so happy with how she came out, and I'm really glad I could make such a tribute to one of my favorite shows and characters. She's a wonderful addition to the collection. Thank you for joining me for this latest project. Please leave a like and comment, and if you want to see more of the cool stuff I create, hit that subscribe button. It really helps to grow the channel and to bring it to more viewers. There's links in the description to my Instagram, as well as a full materials list. If you can't wait for more crafting content, check out the playlist with all of my Make-A-Thing series. And don't forget to check out the other awesome artists who created dolls for this collaboration. Join me next time on Silver Griffin Makes a Thing, where we make whatever we feel like at the moment. If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear, and this weak and idle theme no more yielding but a dream. Gentles, do not reprehend, if you pardon we will mend, and as I am an honest Puck, if we have unearned luck now to scape the serpent's tongue, we will make amends ere long, else the Puck a liar call. So good night unto you all, give me your hands if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends.